right, looks like we are live. Hello everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Tap the screen, share the live. We're going to get started here. We have some interesting topics tonight. We're going to be talking about sibling rivalry and how that plays out in an environment where you grew up with trauma. So we're going to go through a few different examples and different things that I've experienced, how I've gotten through those things, and how to deal with those in a healthier way. Okay, so if you're new to the channel, my name is Tina. I'm a happiness coach. I help people go from being in a dark place to being in a happier place. Now, this doesn't mean that you are always in a constant state of happiness and bliss. There will be times that you will go through challenging times. You will have breakdowns. You will cry. You will be upset. Things will not go according to plan. And yet you can still manage to get through that. And I do this by sharing my experience, strength, and hope, what has worked for me, what helps me get through the tough times, and let's try to be happy, yes. And sometimes that is good. Yes, you want to try to be happy, but the fastest way to being happy is to feel those unhappy emotions. I know, it sounds kind of weird, sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it's when we fully feel all of those negative emotions that we are able to release them, and then we can feel happy when it's appropriate. But to force ourselves to see happiness all the time and to, just put a smile on our face and say everything's okay, meanwhile inside we're dying, that is not happiness. That's looking happy, which is very different from feeling happy. Okay? So when we face our fears, when we address those things head on, that's when we can find true happiness. Otherwise, we're just going through the motions, and there is so much more of a roller coaster ride, which makes it a little bit interesting, terrifying at times, but it is the path to feeling happier, more content with your life, and knowing that you have those choices. Okay? So, growing up, my brother and I, we were very, very close. And my earliest memory, actually, do I have a picture here? Hang on just a sec. There we go. Nope. Sorry. Where did that picture go? Anyway, I was going to show you some artwork that I created as part of my art therapy stuff. It's a picture of my earliest childhood memory, which was me standing holding my baby brother. I was about 3.5, 4 years old, and he was still an infant, and I was getting him ready because my mom and her boyfriend at the time were having a fight, and there was violence, smashing stuff, and my mom said, "Go, Tina, go get your brother ready." And me at 3.5, 4 years old knew exactly how to prepare my brother, what to do to bundle him up, to get him ready. And when I look at other 3-year-olds, I'm like, holy shit, how the hell did I actually know how to do that at that age? But I did. I got him ready, and I remember standing in the hallway of the apartment building holding my brother in my arms, and my mom screaming at her husband at the time, his father, and he threw a beer bottle at my mom, and it smashed, and it ended up cutting her arm. There's blood running down her arm. And I remember holding my brother, thinking to myself, he is my responsibility. So I took that responsibility on at that young of an age. And I always felt like I was partly his mother. And I'm sharing this. Yes, my mom was there. She was a single mom most of the time. Those were the good times when she was a single mom, when she picked certain partners, boyfriends, and stuff. That's when shit went bad. So, my brother and I, consequently, we were very close. We had each other to rely on. So growing up, when there was all these different fights going on, we only had each other to protect each other. So on one hand, we were really, really close, but at the same time, we'd also fight each other because there'd be certain things. So one of the things that for our childhood, there was a lot of neglect. Whether intentional or not, it doesn't matter. The result is there was neglect because my mom was always a single mom. She was always working. There wasn't a whole lot of time for us. And we just had to learn to be quiet, to not cause a problem. And I was older, I should know better. And my job was to help take care of my brother. And I think that happens whether you grow up in a traumatic home or not. I think that's just like an older sibling dynamic that ends up happening. And he was the younger sibling, right? So, and I used to, every time I had to go out, I'd always have to take him with me. And then of course he would do these things to irritate me, to get attention. Why? Partly because I tend to be a little bit more introverted, more quiet. And I think that's because I didn't know at the time. I'm starting to become more aware of now that I'm actually highly sensitive. I pick up other people's emotions, and it's only something that I've become aware of in the last couple of years. Like, I knew I was sensitive in knowing how other people felt, and I was intuitive and stuff like that. But I didn't realize that there was this whole energy transfer thing, which kind of messes me up. But now that I'm aware of it, it is helpful, but it's still confusing sometimes. But at the time, so when emotions got intense in our household, my way of coping, the only way I could, was to withdraw. And I go quiet, I withdraw into a shell, and that's my protective bubble. Nobody can get in. It's my own little world, which is great because I have complete control over that world. And all the, stupid, mean people are outside of that, and they can't get in. And they just cannot penetrate that wall. And that was also part of how I coped with the sexual abuse that I went through, of just being able to shut down and protect that more vulnerable part of me. So consequently, when I come into situations that are perceived as dangerous, even if it's just like an email that's a little bit tersely worded, it can trigger off this response. And so now that I'm aware of it, though, even though it gets triggered, I know how to kind of catch that and pull it back in and kind of go, okay, this is what's going on. And I do that mostly through tools of being able to journal and understand what's going on. I also have to honor and give myself that space when needed so that I can calm down, because if not, the emotions become very, very reactive. So understanding what's going on there, I might have to have a little cry, let it out, and then journal a little bit, go do something else. And those are exactly some of the things that I did today. So when I was feeling triggered, I took some time, I had a little cry, got scared, wrote down what it was I was afraid of, went and did something else. And usually a mundane task is something that helps keep me moving. It doesn't allow me to stay stuck. And it allows me to feel like at the end of that mundane task. So I was, because I do the painting, I was washing out all my paint cups, and it was a chore that I was avoiding because it's a pain to have to do all that stuff. I just would rather paint, but even when you do what you love, there's always a component of what you do that you don't really love so much because it's, not so glamorous or fun, right? So washing out your paint cups and, getting your hands all dry and cracked and everything because you're constantly washing your hands and getting the paint off of you, that's not really a great thing. So anyway, back on track here. So going through that, and then also too, I did something fun of painting. So I did that. I listened to music. I did the journaling. I did a couple of different things, and then I, made sure that when I did eat, I was eating food that was healthy and good for me. So that helped fuel me and sustain me. Also helps with my mood, right? So did that stuff, and then I was able to get myself. Oh, and I did my workout, and then, doing all these things of sticking to some of those core routines that you have, and creating those things to help, even though they're challenging, it's something routine that you can just default to when you have that. And I think they call that discipline, but I don't like that word, so I avoid it, because discipline had a whole other connotation with me growing up, and that we'll save for another story. But going back to the focus of my brother and I. So my brother and I, we spent a lot of time together, but we also fought quite a bit. Now, if anybody else tried to pick on him, they'd fucking have hell to pay, and I would go after them. But him and I, we'd fight like cats and dogs all the time. And it would be stupid shit too. And he loved to try and get a rise out of me. And that was because I was always in this shell, right? And because there's no other parent around and I was a surrogate parent for him, he would do things and he'd get upset if I wasn't paying attention to him the way he needed. And there's 4 years apart from us. So, and we'd be like sitting together on the couch, and it'd be just annoying little stuff. And why I'm bringing this up is because these little things do end up building up. And so he would do things, he'd like poke my arm. And it, like, 1 poke is no big deal, 2 pokes, no big deal. But then he'd just keep poking in the same spot, same spot, same spot. So it starts to get irritating, and then it starts to get tender, and then a whole fight would break out. And he was happy because he got what he wanted. Even if it was negative attention, it was still attention. This is how bad neglect is. That even abuse is better than no attention whatsoever. Okay? And I want you to pay attention to that, because if you are in a work environment and you don't talk, you're the leader and you don't talk to your employees, you are neglecting them, and that is abuse. Okay? So correlate that, because we are all humans, and no matter how old that we get, there are those kind of things that still happen with us, not interacting. And I've seen so many leaders do this. They only interact with their favorite ones. So segregating and having favorite employees is a problem. And also avoiding your employees and avoiding talking with them, and that you're too busy, you've got all these other things. And I used to have different managers that they'd walk the long way around just so they didn't have to say good morning to the employees, because they knew if they walked by, we'd make a point of saying good morning, because we knew it kind of irritated them. So we were acting like my brother in that case. So better to have some attention than no attention. So these are little things. It's very subtle, and neglect is very subtle in itself, because you don't really see the effects of it. It's like, well, your basic needs are met, so why should I have to give you any more, right? So an employee comes in, they have a job, they get a paycheck, why the hell should I have to do any more? Why do I have to cater to your emotions? Like that's not my job, right? Okay. That means you're uncomfortable with those emotions. Okay? And just expecting, if you want loyal employees, you want people that are actually going to do the work whether you're there or not, that are going to contribute whether you're there or not, then you actually have to interact with them. You have to give them some sort of breadcrumb of attention to let them know that they are valuable to you, whether they're the janitor, whether they're the receptionist, and you're the CEO. It doesn't matter, because, okay, let's take a doctor, for example. How effective would a doctor be if he also had to do the job of the receptionist? Not very effective, would he? So therefore, the receptionist, in the work that she does, even though it's not as skilled as a doctor, that receptionist, he or she, because let's have some gender equality here, that receptionist, answering those calls, dealing with the front end clients that are coming in, having to decipher what it is they need, having to deal with upset clients that are they're upset because they're waiting too long, all of that kind of stuff. Imagine if the doctor also had to do all of that. It wouldn't be a very effective practice. He would have his focus, or she would have her focus divided, and it wouldn't be very good. So understanding that every person on your team is extremely valuable. Otherwise, why are they there? Right? So know that they are solving a problem, they are saving that time. And if you don't have the time to take and acknowledge them and know that they exist and see that they are valuable to your company, and then wonder why that they behave badly. Maybe you even label them as toxic. That is not a good thing to label your team. You're labeling your team as toxic. You are the leader. If your family, if you look at your family and you go, they're a bunch of toxic people, like I don't want to be around them, and you are the lead, what the hell? Where's your sense of ownership now? But you expect them to have that same ownership. You expect them to be able to step up, and yet you do not demonstrate that example. What the fuck? I have seen so many leaders do this. And then they are the first ones to start preaching extreme ownership. They're the first ones to start preaching all these different things of how you should operate. And yet they cannot see their own behavior. They cannot see that their own behavior is creating the circumstance. And it sucks. It sucks because we have to start looking at ourselves. We have to look at, it's like, okay, what did I do to contribute to that? Oh yeah, you know what? I just couldn't cope, right? I couldn't cope today, and I avoided it. I shut down, I closed my door. I didn't want to talk to anybody because if I did, I was going to blow up. I was going to have a meltdown, and I am so stressed out. And yet you have no support. Why? Because you're not acknowledging your feelings. Ask me how I know this. I have been on both sides. I've been a good leader sometimes, and then I've been a shit leader other times. So I'm not without fault here. I'm not casting stones because I think I'm without sin or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. I know that I'm capable of bad behavior, and it's because I know I'm capable of bad behavior, I put things in place to mitigate that, to challenge that, to understand what is going on with me. When I examine my own emotions and I think critically about my own emotions, then I can take responsibility for them and I can ask for what it is I need. So it's a big difference of avoiding your employees and not talking to them to say, you know what? I'm really going through a rough time right now and I'm going to need a little bit of extra space. Are you guys okay with that? Can you talk to this person instead for the next week until I get through this? And then once you get through this, then you can come back and you can let them know that, you know what, thank you so much for supporting me with that. I really needed that space and I'm here for you guys. What can I do for you now? Right? So it's a big difference, and that kind of communication goes a long, long way at being able to foster a team of true bonded family, because the work environments we go into are our family of choice. You can't pick Uncle Joe that you don't really like and he's, you know, your mom's brother and you just tolerate him and he's kind of weird and you don't know him. You get to choose who you work with. And if you don't like that, or if that becomes a toxic environment, you have the ability to choose what it is that you want to do with that, and you can move on. So, like I said, there are reasons behind people's behavior, even the stuff that seems like they're trying to antagonize you. So for example, if somebody who's more outgoing sees somebody that's like me, that when I'm overwhelmed, I kind of withdraw, I pull back. I'm kind of like the priest healer in World of Warcraft. If there's too many demands on their time, it drains their energy, their mana bar, and then they can't heal. And then they end up, they're pretty squishy to begin with, but if they can't heal or they can't manage that energy level, then they get drained and they're really not very good for much. So, I know I'm not painting myself in a very good light here, but that being said, you give them a little bit of space, a little bit of time, that energy bar will start to go up on its own. They can not only heal themselves, they can take care of themselves. Now they can start being a heal for the team, okay? So it's the same kind of thing, right? And just like if you have somebody that's a warrior on the team and they are used to being able to take a hit and you don't give them any challenges to deal with, guess what? They're going to start picking on the other team members because they need some sort of challenge. They need stimulation. So you really need to understand how people operate, what it is that they need in order to thrive, and to be able to give each one of them space. Nobody is wrong there. You need the warriors on the team, you need the tanks on the team, and you need the healers on the team. They have different functions, but you don't make your healer tank the big boss, because they're kind of squishy and they'll run out of mana and then they can't heal anybody. And the only time you notice a healer and what they do is once they're gone. So if you guys don't pay attention to your healers, then all of a sudden you'll be like, well, why aren't we able to do all the things that we were able to do before? Like, why aren't we getting the results that we normally get? And it was because of the little stuff that the healer would do in the background that nobody really notices or pays attention to until it's gone. It's like those little heals here and there, those little encouragements to the team when they saw the team being down and doing something to make them laugh, doing something to encourage them, or any of those kind of things. That brings them up, brings the team up. You remove that because their productivity numbers aren't good. And now all of a sudden the rest of the team, their productivity numbers went down. What the hell's going on here? Oh, right. Well, it can't be that person, but it's not here anymore. It must be something else. So let's focus on KPIs and systems and processes, because the emotional heart of your company is not really important, right? Yeah. Okay, so when you are unified, thank you, Ava. Welcome, everyone. So when you are unified, that's when you are strong. When you are looking at everything that goes on, whether in your personal life, your professional life, if you see a bad behavior, even if that's you behaving badly, okay, that you're not being your best self, everything is either an expression of or a cry for love. Fear is false evidence appearing real. If somebody is acting badly, they are in a state of fear of something, okay? It's up to us, if we're in a state of love, to be able to understand what is it that's got them bent out of shape. What is it that has them upset? What has them in this illusion that they're under attack, okay? And it could be something really simple that triggers them. And it could be something positive that triggers them, right? You might be thinking, because I've had this circumstance before, you tell me if you've had this, where there's going to be a change in the company. Say you announce that there's a restructuring, but you don't have all the pieces together, but there will be something that's coming up. And you're thinking this is all great because you're keeping everybody, but you're putting them in roles that they're going to be happier in, and everybody's going to have stuff that they're going to thrive in these new positions. But stuff is not communicated to the people, and so now they're left to get all of their exercise jumping to their own conclusions of what that means. And depending on their previous experience, they might automatically go to the worst case scenario. Why? Because it's unknown what's happening. And I've seen leaders do this too, and they don't communicate this stuff to them. They're like, well, I've got you. Like, you know, everything's good. Like, what are you worried about? Don't you trust me? And then they take offense to it, right? So I've seen this kind of stuff happen. And it's just different levels of trauma that are playing out within the organization, okay? And what you're used to as trauma, and you've developed a thick skin around it, may not be the same thing the other team members. My trauma is not your trauma, and your trauma is not my trauma. So we all have different things that will affect us. Even my brother and I, even though we grew up in the same household, we had very different methods of handling the trauma that we were dealt with. My brother is much more people-oriented in that he needs that external stimulation. External stimulation is very threatening to me, and I need to back away. I need quiet, I need peace, I need a little bit of recharge time, and then I can interact with people, right? So we have different ways of doing that, and my brother not getting enough attention will cause him to behave badly just to get some sort of attention. He needs that constant excitement. So it's not bad, it's just different ways of handling the same trauma that happened. So one might go the empath route, and the other one might go the narcissist route. Okay? This is why I hate fucking labels, because it's bullshit, because we're all human beings, we've all been through different things, and then there's just different styles of coping. And to say that a narcissist can't be healed whatsoever, I think is total BS. I know that there are people out there that have been through a lot, and that, you know, they harm other people as a way to cope with stuff. And that's not a good thing. I'm not condoning that kind of behavior. I also want to point out that empaths can harm other people unknowingly, and they think that, well, I didn't do anything because, you know, I'm not as bad as that other person. That other person deliberately did it. But it's much harder to look at what an empath is actually doing wrong, and that withdrawing and withholding and stuff like that. The people pleasing too is also trying to control other people, and not giving them the dignity of knowing what it is that they're capable of. So there's some balancing things and understanding these dynamics. These are playing out in your organization, whether you know it or not, whether you are aware of trauma responses or not. And even if you had the best, most perfect movie-style childhood growing up, the people that you work with, your customers, your vendors, they're all going to have these different things, and understanding how to deal with that, how to navigate that, is really, really important. Okay. I also want to talk a little bit about starting to view trauma as much as you would a physical wound. Okay, it's an emotional and it's a spiritual wound. And it can affect us in different ways. And even if we've done some work around it, and we've done certain things, and we have tools to be able to deal with that, I want you to think of it, somebody who's been through trauma is no different than somebody who is in a wheelchair and they are not able to walk. To understand it the first time you deal with it, it's like, oh yeah, you know, I'll make some special accommodations and we'll help you in here. And then the next time turn around when they struggle to get in the building because there's not a ramp or they didn't have assistance, and you're like, well, can't you just get over it? Like, why are we going through this again? And then there's this fancy little label called trauma looping that blames the person who's been through trauma that it's coming back up again. This isn't a choice. They are struggling with certain things, and being understanding of what it is that they're struggling with. I'm not saying that that means you have to coddle to them, they don't do their job and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's understanding that, helping them understand that it's their responsibility to start looking at what it is that they're going through and how they can mitigate those challenges and what it is that they need to do for themselves, and being supportive instead of punitive towards them of how they cope with those things. Okay? And of course, the sooner something is addressed, if you've experienced trauma, so say you get into a bad car accident and, somebody died in the accident and it affects you and you start having flashbacks and nightmares and you feel scared every time you go to drive, right? The sooner you deal with that trauma, the less likely it is to impact you long term. But people who have grown up in homes where there was constant trauma, constant hypervigilance was required to survive in that circumstance. And there's my cat. Felix, stop it. So, another one of my triggers and how I know that I'm being affected is I tend to have a very auditory responses when I could hear a mouse fart a couple of miles down the road and I'd find that annoying. So the funny thing is my brother's the other way. He likes lots of noise when everything's around, but when it comes time to sleep, he cannot sleep if there's any noise whatsoever. Once I'm asleep, I'm out. You could blow a bomb up beside me and I'm out cold, right? But getting to sleep is a whole other story, right? That's a whole different topic. So, dealing with trauma and stuff like that. There can be little things that happen in the work environment too. Just like the fights with my brother. So for example, I'm going to give a story of where I was working at a place. I was actually the supervisor at the place, and one of my employees, he did not like how I addressed some of the things that I had to call him out on things he wasn't doing. And he got mad, and part of the reason why he got mad was because he wanted opportunity for growth. He took a pay cut to come to this job with the promise, not a promise I gave him, but a promise that was given to him that there was the opportunity for growth and all that kind of stuff, and there really wasn't. And the only reason they took on this piece of business was because it was contingent with getting the larger piece of business that they normally want, but they had to take on this other little piece and make a concession. So because of that, there wasn't true growth within the company because they had no interest in developing the transportation side of the business. They only wanted the warehousing side of the business. But in order to land this client, they had to make that concession. So be careful with those kind of things, because even the people that you have in there, they're expecting to be able to grow somewhere within the company, and if they see no growth, your good people will end up leaving, and that's what ended up happening. But before this, so that was part of why he was being upset, and because I had to call him out on certain things that he was doing, and I did it very diplomatically, I did it fair, I did it structured, I did all the right things, like friggin' textbook. And I'm empathetic, right? So I'm kind, I'm caring, all of these things. I couldn't have done it any better. And still, he reacted poorly with it. And the way he tried to get back, because he wasn't able to accept the feedback, is he knew I was I love cats, right? Even though I just yelled at mine. I do love cats, and he knew that was a sensitive thing for me. And so he had come in, he had sent an email. He's like, "Oh, Tina, I got this great joke for you." He's like, here, he sends an email, and it was this little video of a cat that had stuck its head and the sunroof closed, and then it looked like it got decapitated. Now, it was a fake video, but it really upset me. It really upset me. I was devastated. I started bawling because it's like, two things. That is deliberate cruelty that somebody's done to even make that kind of video. So those kind of things end up having a huge impact. And then to know that he did that so that he could get that reaction out of me and know that he was causing me pain. And he felt justified in causing that kind of pain to me because he was getting back. He felt like I started it. And to him, that's fine. He may feel right. Maybe there was something I wasn't aware of that wasn't communicated. Instead, there was this tit for tat kind of thing that happens. And I can promise you this is happening all throughout your business. There's different ways that people, because they don't communicate things properly, they haven't been taught to do this, they think it is okay to give a dig to one of your other employees, and that ends up affecting them, and then that causes their performance to change and all of those kind of stuff. So you have subtle ways that these kind of abusive behaviors start happening within your organization, and it's really important that we as leaders do this work internally so that we recognize it within ourselves, we can address it within ourselves. We can also, because we're leading by example, we allow our other leaders that manage our teams, that they are able to catch this, address this, open up dialogue, open up communication, and have it so that it is a supportive, flourishing, healthy environment instead of a punitive environment. And people will step up to the plate in a whole lot better way, and making sure that unacceptable behavior is addressed as soon as possible. Now, I did not address his behavior properly at that time, letting him know that it got a rise out of me, and I don't know if I addressed it properly, but I did let him know that it really, really hurt me, and that I couldn't believe that after all that I've done, and I've been supportive of him, and he had some stuff that went on with his kids and stuff like that, that he would do that to me. So I let him feel the full weight of that, and he felt really guilty and remorseful and tried to backpedal, but I didn't let him off the hook for that. I'm like, that really hurt, and that wasn't called for. So because I was aware of my feelings, I called that out. So there's those kind of things. And I think what made me bring that up is because I'm aware that there are very cruel people in the world. I remember seeing this video on, I don't know if it was put on Instagram, but there was a cat that was found in a parking garage, and the cat's legs had been bent so that they were up like this, and they were straight like that. And the cat was still walking around and everything, and of course the rescue found this cat, they took it back, they x-rayed it, they found out that the cat's legs weren't even broken. And I just started bawling at that, because that meant deliberate cruelty over a long period of time. Now this cat doesn't even know what the hell it's going through. This cat thinks it's normal. This is just life for this cat. And that's kind of how trauma can be for people. They don't know that this is a problem. They don't know they shouldn't be walking around with their legs up like this. And they don't know that it's not normal to be hurting like this all the time. And if you have been through those kind of things and you've managed to cope just fine, you still get around, you're still alive, but your legs are bent up like this, and you become a leader, and now you're going to teach other people, why the hell are you walking like that on all four paws on the ground? You should be walking with these two paws up like this. And you'll watch your team twist and contort themselves to be like you, and you haven't dealt with the trauma you've been through. And there's no worse thing that a leader can do than lead somebody else down the wrong path. I believe there's even stuff in the Bible that talks about how leaders are held to higher account. That if you lead somebody down that wrong path, knowingly or unknowingly, you're held to higher account. And I say this because I've made mistakes too. And this is what is hard about being a leader. It's not all glory. It's not. And most of the time people are following me and I'm looking behind going, why are you following me? I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going this way. And next thing you know, you have people following you. You're like, okay, I'm just trying to do the best that I can, right? And for some reason, people like to follow that. And that's always kind of the way it's been. But I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, not cause any problems. I've never been trying to really be the leader, but people see me that way. I don't know if it's an Aries thing. Aries, they always say that they're natural born leaders, and I'm like, yeah, but we also have really bad tempers. So there's that, joys of a fire sign, right? So and just understand, this is why it's important to do that inner work. It is really important to look within, understand what it is with ourselves so that we don't end up trying to get people to conform to a certain way that we think is right because it served us through our lifetime. To allow ourselves to look at a different perspective, to look at maybe what might be wrong with the way that we actually see things, and to invite other opinions from the team. So those healers, or those quiet ones that are in the back, they might have different perspectives. They might be able to point out things that you don't see because you're too close to the big boss, right? But they can see, because they're further in the background, they can see a better perspective. And they might point out certain things. It's like, hey, I noticed that when this happens, these other 3 things happen, and it's causing an impact in the financial area, or it's causing an impact in OS&D, like overshorts and damages. Those kind of things can happen, right? So being able to be open and aware of your own emotions so that you can communicate that better to the team. You can be able to communicate with the people that are around you what it is that you need. But if you're too busy denying what it is that you need, then it makes it really difficult for people to understand what's going on with you, right? And then they will follow that same lead. They'll shut down their emotions and just continue on. And then you wonder why you have problems with customers complaining that, nobody on the team cares about them, and they feel slighted and hurt. And then the team might, brush it off, a bunch of snowflakes, blah, 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 right? It's like, yeah, well, those are the snowflakes we're in business for, and the fact that they don't know what the hell they're doing, the fact that they are whining, that they are complaining, is the whole reason they came to us. Because if they were exactly like us, they wouldn't need us. So of course, your customers don't understand, your team doesn't understand. These things have to be explained, they have to be understood, and you have to walk them through a process and acknowledging how they feel. Their entire customer, everybody focuses on the customer experience, but what about the internal customer? What about your internal team? What is their experience as they go through this process? Do they feel like they have, if they're the warrior type, do they feel like they have enough challenge in their role? If they're the healer type, do they feel like there's enough empathy and care? If they're the ones that are like, the enthusiastic, enjoyable, is there enough fun in the work environment? Or is it all just serious, right? Is there enough structure to make the analytical ones happy and not anxious, right? You have to have a balance between all 4 to know that you are on the right track and to also know where you're going to end up having conflict between the different teams, because the structure guy is going to hate the one that is the fun guy, and the warrior guy is going to hate the bleeding heart, right? So it's like you're going to have conflicts between those two different dynamics, right? And being able to mitigate those and understand those. And part of the reason is that warrior type is hiding and they're protecting their heart because they got a little bit of a squishy heart under all that armor. And then the bleeding heart is hiding, the strength that they have and the resilience that they have. And everybody just assumes that they're squishy, right? But they can take a beating for a long period of time. So, and they can smile doing it, and they are happy to help whoever. So, and then you have your fun guy, and then you have the structure guy, right? The structure guy, he wants everything by the book, the numbers, the SOPs, analytical, data, numbers. I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about the people. And the warriors and the data guys, they tend to like to hang out together. They tend to be on the more logical side, not so emotional, touchy-feely kind of thing. And then you have the ones that are, the lifeblood of the company, right? The ones that give it meaning, give it purpose, right? Otherwise, it's all just like hit after hit. You go down this tunnel, like, because I was in transport and logistics, so I know most of the sides of, it's like, we'd joke a lot of times, and we'd also make fun of the ones that would cry and get upset about things. So I've been on both sides of the fence here. I know the compassionate side, and I also know the other side where you start teasing anybody that is a little bit of a snowflake. So there's some balance, right? And there are little things that can end up being like small irritations, like that, my brother and I, him poking me just because he wants attention, poke, poke, poke. And it's, if you just look at the one thing, it's like, well, Tina, come on. One poke's not going to be a thing. But meanwhile, nobody's looking at the fact that he's poked me 20 times, and now I'm annoyed, now I'm irritated, and now my arm's tender and there's a little bit of a bruise happening, right? So these are little things, and he would always get away with that. And he used to do this little shit stuff too, where if he wasn't getting what he wanted, even when I didn't touch him, because like I would usually lose my cool and I'd end up hitting him, and then he'd start crying, and then my mom would yell at me and say, Tina, stop hitting your brother. And so he knew that this was the pattern. He had some good pattern recognition. And then sometimes he would actually use that to his advantage when I wouldn't do what he wanted. And even if I didn't hit him, he'd start crying. He's like, oh, Mom. And then automatically I'd get in trouble. And I'd be like, I didn't do anything. These were constant, normal fights that were happening all the time. And sometimes they would escalate into greater violence. And then other times they were, just normal sibling rivalry. But guys, these are things that happen in traumatic homes and in your work family, okay? So being aware of these things and being aware of these dynamics that play out is going to be hugely valuable for you to become happier in whatever area of your life, your personal, your professional, your relationships, because even if you're married, there might be interpersonal dynamics that are happening in the other family and stuff that you're not used to. You might jump in and go, holy shit, what's going on here? And they might jump into your family and go, holy shit, what's going on here? And we all become accustomed to our version of trauma, right? And because we've gotten used to it, it's sometimes very difficult to see that. And then it takes a pair of fresh eyes to take a look at it and go, what the hell is that all about? And then you're like, what? Oh, okay, now I can see. Oh, okay, that's not normal? Oh, I didn't know that. And it's a matter of being able to adjust, not be so rigid in how we perceive things, and adjust so that we have some structure but some flexibility as well, so that you need the structure for some sort of sense of predictability, because complete uncertainty causes a lot of anxiety. But if you have too much structure, it ends up strangling the situation, and there's no flow. It's like having a house that's too sealed. Like some of the newer builds of houses, they're too well ventilated. That there's no air leaks or heat and stuff like that, that they actually have to put in special equipment. I can't remember right now what it is. I'm not very technical that way. But they have to put in special equipment to make sure that there's proper airflow. I know when I bought my new house, that was one of the things that they ended up saying. It's like, oh, we have to do this, because if not, there's not enough proper airflow. So too much structure, too much all sealed in will cause you to cut off the airflow. Not enough structure, there's uncertainty. It's like, oh, are we even protected here, or like, are we going to get blown away? What's going on, right? So balance is the key. And as you go through different things, there will be little things that know that when there's changes, these are usually the times that you're going to see the most reactions. It's going to bring up people's trauma responses. They're not going to act their best self. You're going to see the worst sides of them. And I've been through enough change management stuff within corporations and personal lives to see that it will bring up these different challenges, and to be self-aware enough to manage your own emotions through the process, and then be able to help others manage their emotions through the process by expressing love, expressing support, expressing kindness, expressing that they're okay, that this is normal to go through this process. It's not the end of the world, right? So giving that reassurance, even if you're not fully feeling it yourself, sometimes even just the act of giving that reassurance is like, oh, okay, if I'm telling somebody else it's going to be okay, then I have to, eat my own cooking, per se, right? You have to, okay, if I'm reassuring somebody else, yes, you can get through this. Yes, you will be able to get out to the other side. Will it turn out exactly the way we want? Maybe, maybe it won't. I don't know. But no matter what, we are going to get through it. So if I can do that for somebody else, then I also have to believe that myself. So guys, I hope you found that helpful. I think we're going to wrap it up here tonight. If you guys are just joining in and kind of caught the tail end of it, I will be uploading this on YouTube. You can check out my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125. Head over there. You can watch some of the replays that I've done every night around 9 p.m. It was a little late tonight, but you will see me on here, and I'll do a live training. If there's any particular questions that you have or any topics you want me to cover, let me know and I'll cover those for you. I'll do up a training, and we can help a bunch of people, and we can help with my goal of being able to help 1 million people heal past trauma. And one of the ways I want to do this is to bring awareness to how trauma plays out in the work environment, so that you can have a happier, healthier, more profitable business, because people who are happy actually perform at a higher level. So guys, with that, I'm going to wrap it up tonight, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.